Now I'd like to talk about the word punk, P-U-N-K, punk, a word I hear used a lot in sports today. I hear it a lot used by sports media commentators. I want to talk about the word punk and its etymology, its origin, its evolution. I first heard the word punk when I was 3 years old. And you say, how do you remember what you heard when you're 3? I've got one of those, what's called autobiographical memory. I can tell you what I got for Christmas when I was 3 years old. I can see it all like it was yesterday when I was 3 years old. But I first heard it in the backyard, or maybe went to the lake. I can't remember that, because we often went to the lake. I think it was in the backyard. I heard the word punk on the 4th of July because a punk was this stick that you used. It was like made of, I think, bamboo covered with some sort of sawdust, I believe it was. It's a slow burning stick, punk, that you used to light the firecrackers, because you don't have to light a match and then light a fuse. You could just reach over with this sort of stick and touch the end of the fuse on the ladyfinger or the black cat or these different kinds of fireworks that we had back then, and it would set the fuse to burning and the little bomb would explode in the backyard. Why we celebrate the 4th of July by lighting little bombs in the backyard, I'll never know. But that's what we did, and that's the first time I heard the word punk. Then when I got to grade school, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, I began to hear the word punk used. Punks were juvenile delinquents, let's call them. They were troublemakers. They were kids who robbed, kids who would sucker punch you in a fight, kids who carried knives. They were punks, juvenile delinquents. They could be what you'd call in those days hoods, as in hoodlums, but punks were just bad kids, not necessarily tough kids, just bad kids. But more and more, as I grew up, the word punk was just used for losers. He's just a punk. He's weak-minded. He's untough. He's a weak-minded, untough loser. That's a punk. That was a punk to me. But then I got into sports writing, covering teams, covering ultimately the Dallas Cowboys, late 70s, 80s. And I began to hear the word punk used as a gay slur. Punk. Now, maybe this was used more by the black players than the white players. I don't remember that I heard a white player use punk as a gay slur. But the phrase I occasionally heard from a lot of the black players I knew very well was, he's as happy as a punk in Boys Town. I'll say it again. He's as happy as a punk in Boys Town. Then somehow the term punk morphed into a verb. It morphed into a TV show. You got punked. You got fooled. You got duped. You got set up and suckered and embarrassed. You were a fool. And then the verb punked somehow evolved into part of the sports lexicon. What? Especially in basketball. When one team was more physical than another team, when it got bullied, especially on the backboards, rebounds, the losing players sometimes said, we got punked. And I began to hear a lot of sports commentators use this term. I'm talking about ex-player commentators, just media members. Again and again, I heard the term punked. They got straight up punked tonight. They were soft. They were weak, mentally and physically weak. They got punked. I'm pretty sure that term evolved from a gay slur. In fact, just me, I consider that term a gay slur. And I flinch and I wince every single time I hear it spoken on television or radio or on digital shows. I flinch and I wince. And I think to myself, how can you get away with saying that publicly? That? I mean, I sometimes wonder, does the gay community understand the origin of that word? Is nobody in the gay community offended by the very public use of that word? I don't know. I guess not.